Now on BBC Two Scotland, a tribute to one of Scotland's greatest motorsport heroes, Colin McRae, born to race.
Colin McRae was one of the most talented rally drivers the world has ever seen. But a helicopter accident in September brought premature ends to the lives of Colin, his son Johnny, Ben Percelli and Graham Duncan. Motorsport would dominate Colin's life. His father Jimmy was a multiple winner of the British Rally Championship.
Right from he could walk, basically, he was interested in wheels and cars and anything with wheels on it.
Just said to Jim one day, I said, I'll show you where I practice, and it was up near Blackwood. And I took the two guys up there and we were running around in bikes, and I looked at a steep slope at the far end of the area I was practicing on, and I said to Jim, and I climbed that just the other day there, and Jim looked at me, he didn't, and Colin stopped. He didn't get up there. I said, aye, no problem. And suddenly this blur came hurtling past us. Colin, full chat up the hill, over the top on the back wheel, popped down the front, and then just sat up there, looked down at the two of us smugly. And I just said to Jim on that day, and this is a 13-year-old kid, I said to Jim, he's something special. And so it turned out.
When we come back from holiday, had got friends in Coltness Car Club together, managed to get a Hillman Avenger, sent away for his competition licence, got his competition licence and did the rally, and we didn't know anything about it until we come back.
I started in motocross because that's what I wanted to do, that's where my interest was, and he never ever pushed me to try to drive a rally car. He just more or less left it up to myself, and it was actually me and some guys from the local car club that had to go and sort out my own rally car to do the first rally. And he just sat back until he saw that I had the commitment there, and then he stepped in and helped me afterwards.
And it was Colin's enthusiasm that led to his first Scottish Championship season when he was just 17.
He had an HBC Talbot Sunbeam, hashed, bashed and crashed. And he did a full season with that wee car in 1986, and how it survived, I've no idea. He was like a pool table ball, ricocheting off the trees, ricocheting off the scenery. But by cracky, he could drive. Because in the early days, he had a desire to drive. It was only later that the will to win came through.
For the 1987 campaign, the Sunbeam was replaced by a Vauxhall Nova, and Colin was joined by Derek Ringer, who was entrusted with the pace notes and the co-driver's seat.
When he got the Nova, he asked if I would do the national championship with him, so I said, OK, we'll do a few rallies, see where it goes. No, I never had at that point any aspirations to do this professionally. You know, it was a fun thing to do at the time, but once I got involved with Colin and you know, you relate to his level of commitment, and I realised, well, we're going to do this, we might as well put 110% into it.
Derek, being a driver, he had the flair for speed as well, but I mean, it was a good relationship, and for two guys to come from, you know, car club level to world champion, I think it worked well.
The following year, Colin became the youngest ever Scottish champion, driving 6 different cars in the process, including his first encounter with a Sierra Cosworth.
Which is the most unlikely rally car in the world. It's like a tank with wheels rather than tracks. And yet, he could make this thing dance. In his hands, it was like an Exocet missile, just going through the woods. So, When someone that young can take a car that big and heavy and turn it into a rally winner, as he did, then the rest of the rallying world sat up and took notice.
Go!
1990, the season didn't go particularly well. You know, we had a couple of accidents, all the usual sorts of things, but by the end of the season we got our hands on a four-wheel drive car for the RAC. We also managed to comprehensively destroy most of the car. My door was held closed with a farmer's gate bolt, but I think we ended up about 6th.
Once he came on the scene in a four-wheel drive car, I realised that my mantle as, should we say, #1 British driver was going to be very short-lived.
Colin's performances were now attracting the attention of the big manufacturer teams, and in 1991, Prodrive, responsible for the Subaru team, took a chance on the young Scot.
We knew we were going to have a sort of, it was going to be an uphill battle. We were against the likes of Toyota and Ford Motor Company, and we didn't expect a lot of success on the World Championship scene. But we thought, well, if we had a British team running and a young British team as well, then at least we could have something sort of, you know, some positive days on the British Championship, which we could sort of all rally round. And so that was the context in terms of the team.
In fact, we were able to produce results for them, albeit in the British Championship, was quite a morale-boosting exercise, not just for us, but obviously for Prodrive itself, and it gave a lot more credibility to their efforts.
Those efforts resulted in a first British Rally Championship title, and the elite world stage was beckoning.
By the end of that year, we then did the RAC for them, and, you know, had teammates of Marco Alain and Ari Vatanen, you know, heroes of mine when I was younger. We had an accident in the end. But when we had accidents, we had professional accidents. But the other thing was we also got out of a lot of situations. As long as we could pull the car out, we always thought the mechanics could fix it at the end.
It gave the guys a chance to be heroes as well, because he so often put them in the spotlight by bringing it in with 3 wheels or whatever. You were never in any doubt whether the driver was giving it all he'd got or not. You were never in any doubt about how fast the car could go, because Colin always made sure it was either at the limit or beyond it.
And the car was at the limit on the other side of the world in 1993.
New Zealand's was always one of our favourite events. It's a real driver's rally. The roads are fantastic, and we'd been a couple of times before. There was a lot of pressure on the team.
We're just about to change to the new car, and unbeknown to the rest of the world, the president of the company had said to us, you know, Japanese, we can't change to the new car without a success with the old car. There's a sort of lot of pride in this.
We went into about the middle of the rally, into a very famous stage, the Motu Road. We went in 4th place. Colin drove it absolutely perfectly. A real tactical approach to that stage, where lots of drivers lost a lot of time in the conditions. We went in 4th, came out 1st, and then we had 2 days of the pack chasing us, and it was real nail-biting stuff, all separated by a few seconds. The only people who weren't nervous about winning the rally were Colin and myself.
It cost me a fortune in phone calls, I can assure you, because at that time we couldn't just go into the website and get the results. So, I mean, it was very much fingers crossed, you know, getting a phone call, first phoning after every stage to see what was happening. But it was very a proud moment as well, because it was his first World Championship win, and it was Subaru's first World Championship win.
That victory in New Zealand meant the new car was released, and in the 1994 RAC rally, the home fans had a British victory for the first time in 17 years.
You know, we really grew together. He grew in his experience, his public acclaim, just as we did. The sort of blue and yellow, which has become so iconic for Subaru today in the World Championship, became so in those days, and particularly in Britain and Scotland, of course. And those early victories and that win at the in Chester on the RAC Rally was something, it's hard to describe to people now just what an occasion it was and how the whole country came behind it.
Yeah, everybody wants to win their home rally. I mean, we really wanted to win it. We'd led it every year since '91 at some point. Eventually it was going to come right.
My ambition at the end of the day is to be world champion, and to win the RAC is one event on the way to being world champion. If we can continue next year as we have been at the moment, then there's a possibility.
It was a funny season because it sort of, I suppose like most years with Colin, there were big ups and big downs. You know, there was sort of, Colin didn't take second places. It was either we're going to win or we're probably going to be sitting at the side of the road somewhere.
The '95 season didn't start well, and on the championship's penultimate round in Catalonia, with McRae leading fellow Subaru driver Carlos Sainz, there was controversy when he was told to slow in favour of his Spanish teammate.
I don't think it was as bad as people like to make out. You know, there was tension there on occasions. They're two extraordinary competitive characters, and one of them was going to be world champion. But I think behind it all there was an extraordinary respect on both sides as well. So it probably wasn't as difficult to manage. Actually, looking back, it probably was difficult to manage, but there we go.
Controversy in Catalonia and trying to sort that out. Obviously there was a bit of a disagreement between Carlos and myself, so I had to sort that out, and then it was going to be a fairly major fight anyway, so there was quite a lot of hype round about it. We were in equal points racing for the World Championship, so there's no way there could ever be team orders in that situation.
The Scots' determination and skill outdrove Sainz over the forest stages, and in Chester on a dry November afternoon, the first British World Rally Champion was crowned.
You win the World Championship, it's not something many people do, so the whole thing ended on an absolute high. We had some incidents during the rally, but you know, we didn't ever believe that we weren't going to win that rally. It was something that was going to happen.
We were at the end of the last stage, and you know, even when you think it goes into the last stage, it's going to be all right. Your fingers are crossed. You know, it could be a puncture, it could be anything. So it was a big sigh of relief when we saw him crossing the flying finish, because we were there at the stop board at the end.
Anyone who stood there in that crowd on that day and was part of that whole process of seeing a young Scottish driver come through to be world champion, you cannot describe the emotion of the people involved in that. And for me, people ask me, you know, what is the one day in my motorsport career I remember most? And one might have thought it was when Harry and I won the championship all those years ago, or other successes we've had, but I can honestly say it's that day in Chester.
Honours followed that '95 success, a third place in the BBC Sports Personality of the Year and an MBE for services to motorsport in 1996. But he was to become a favourite with a completely different fan base, thanks to a computer game bearing his name.
At the time, you know, he was the world champion, and interest in rally was at an enormous kind of peak. So we were looking for somebody to front the game, and Colin was the obvious and the perfect choice.
It was never, oh yeah, we're going to do that. It was one of these things, let's go along with these people and see what can happen here. But once you get into it, once you saw what was happening, he put an awful lot of effort into these games, and you know, to make sure that you could get it as good as it could be at the time. And since then, you know, that's 10 years. In every game, I would say more recently he's had more input into them.
I think his driving and his spectacular style did all the talking for the spectators, but then the rally game, of course, opened it up to a load of new youngsters who really thought Colin McRae was just a fictitious character.
Indeed, in America, you know, for many years they believed he was sort of a Lara Croft type figure. He didn't actually exist, but so that obviously has given him a wide acclaim throughout the world.
He would pick up the game and he'd just be able to nail the fastest lap time, you know, as fast as our guys in the studio, and these are guys that, you know, have worked on the games for years, which was kind of typical of Colin, because he just got in there and understood it.
However, in the real world, things were changing for Colin. Mickey Grist replaced Derek Ringer in the co-driver's seat, and in 1999 he signed for Ford on a contract worth £3 million a year.
Ford were really looking to push the launch of the new car, because what we actually did was we launched the rally car at the same time as the road car was launched, which is something that had never really been done before as well. And we felt to really give it the lift that it needed as well, and plus what Colin had obviously done for Subaru over the years, when you think how it made them into basically what they are today. It was a very strategic plan from the Ford point of view. You know, it was just fantastic to be able to get his signature on the paper.
I think we were there when the car, actually, the engine started up for the very first time. I mean, we didn't even get to sit in it and drive it until sort of mid-December. Of course, really the design of the car and the setup of the car was more or less in black and white. And it wasn't until we actually jumped in the car that there was a lot of things needed doing. We basically tested right the way up to Christmas. Then we had to go back between Christmas and the New Year. Then after New Year, straight out and did more testing. And, you know, initially, of course, it didn't go that well. But it was a remarkable turnaround.
The first competitive outing with Ford was in Monte Carlo and resulted in a tremendous third place. But a technical infringement on the water pump saw the team disqualified.
It's always a disappointment when something like that is taken away from you, but it was the very first rally with the team. You know, they had the chance to turn it around. It wasn't like we'd done half a season and it was going wonderfully, and then they found out there was an illegal water pump, and then we'd lost everything that we'd done the year. In this case, it was just a one-off. I think he accepted it, we got on with it, and we looked to the next event.
That ended in retirement for McRae, but the third event, the Safari Rally, was a different matter.
You've got to get the car through the very difficult conditions. And I think it was a bit of a surprise for everybody, and I'm sure even Malcolm would admit that as well, that here we are, we had a great rally, we didn't have any technical issues, no punctures. We've got through and we won Safari Rally, the toughest rally in the World Rally Championship that there's ever been. You know, and everybody was quite taken aback. And this was only our third event, I think. The next event, we turned up in Portugal. Lo and behold, we won that rally too. And everybody thought, my God, we're on the crest of a wave. And little did we know that we retired from every other event for the rest of that year. And that was really frustrating.
Left into turn, hairpin left.
A huge accident. The car going from 100 miles an hour to 0 in just 1.3 seconds. The crew, thankfully, unhurt.
We had quite a big accident. We stopped in the stage just before box 27.
You always knew that Colin had very good sort of mechanical skill, good knowledge, and he knew exactly what he wanted out of the car. But also he was the fastest driver in the world at that point in time. And there's no better way or quicker way to develop your car than have somebody of that ability behind the wheel. But really, for me, that's where he was an outstanding. There was nobody that we've worked with before or since that had those technical skills.
While things improved for both Colin and Ford in 2000, it was 2001 where once again the popular Scot was on the brink of a second World Championship title.
This was it. We're going to win the championship on the Wales Rally GB. You know, all we had to do was to beat Richard Burns, stay in front of Richard Burns and Carlos. But always Colin tries to get a buffer just in case you have a puncture or a spin or something like that. But in this one particular place, it was a very high-speed section where, you know, you have very quick corners, one after another, where the pace notes literally have to come out like a machine gun. And it was a 5 right plus and 6 left minus over crest cut, and cut the right, pirouetted us, corkscrewed through the air. My God, did we bounce. We bounced and we bounced, and it was rolled into a ball.
He was pretty down with that. That was his fault. 6 inches too deep into a corner and caught a rock and it put the thing. But again, you know, that's rallying. I mean, Richard went on and he went off in the same stage. Just the lack of concentration can do that. But, you know, Richard got away with that, whereas Colin didn't.
A move to Citroën and Derek beside him again, he helped the French team to their first manufacturer's title.
The first rally that we did with Colin, it's Monte Carlo, and for me it's a very, very big remember because it was the complete podium with Citroën, with Sebastian, Colin and Carlos on the podium on Monte Carlo, and it's really fantastic. And then I have also a very good and very nice remember from Colin because it was a very, very nice guy and really a great sportsman who never looked for excuses, and really I have very, very good remember.
With Citroën it was difficult for us. Colin had a completely different way of working with the engineers in Ford and Subaru than how the team wanted things to happen in Citroën. So it was difficult for us to come to terms with that. And I think if we'd have been there for a further year, then you'd have seen much better results. But there's no doubt about it that he did find it difficult in a team where the culture was alien to him.
Despite winning a total of 25 World Rallies, Colin's style was to go for the win, which perhaps prevented him from further titles.
Rallying is one of the most cruel sports in the world because you're sitting there not only dependent on your own abilities, you're depending on a collection of 3,000 nuts, bolts and bits of metal behaving and doing as you want it to do. Colin had been known to break a few of these bits in the past, but sometimes the cars just couldn't keep pace with Colin.
Colin's competitive instinct, natural ability and love for driving often saw him away from his normal environment. In the Los Angeles X Games, he became a firm favourite with American fans. Early in his career, McRae raced a Prodrive BMW at Knock Hill in the British Touring Car Championship, giving Matt Neal a hard time at the hairpin. He also drove a Ferrari 550 in the Le Mans 24-hour race. The team finished third in class.
He was hoping to come back and do another Le Mans. It was one of those things he quite enjoyed. It was very challenging and quite tough, but he certainly did an extremely good job. He didn't in any way sort of show significant difference to the race drivers who'll be doing it year after year.
The Ford team were no doubt nervous when Colin's passion for motorbikes led to a blast round Brands Hatch on a Suzuki Superbike.
My hands are killing me. Look at that, nearly worn them out. Great fun though.
We're on board with Colin McRae. McRae versus Marcus Gronholm.
In the Race of Champions, the end-of-year motorsport extravaganza, Colin joined forces with another Scottish hero, David Coulthard.
It was a great pleasure to have him instruct me on how to get used to driving a car sideways, because obviously that was his domain. They have a sort of sixth sense as you know where the car is, what tyre it's leaning on, and the movement of a car, which is much more detailed than is necessary to drive a single-seater. And that's where Colin really excelled.
One of the greatest endurance challenges is the annual Dakar Rally. The event runs over long, ultra-tough special stages on a route from Europe to Dakar, the capital of Senegal. In 2004, and unsure of his World Rally Championship future, Colin competed for the first time.
Sort of strange the way things happened. I was out, then there was a possibility of being back in again with the Subaru deal, and then it came to nothing at the end of the day. But I think the important thing is that I've got Dakar lined up, and you know, a new challenge to really concentrate on.
Colin impressed. However, the Dakar bit back and didn't allow the Scot to finish in his first two attempts. He had agreed to compete for BMW in 2008 and was looking forward to the challenge.
The diesel engine is tremendously torquey, really, really torquey engine. It's very quiet, so it makes the car quite a pleasure to drive. There's no noise, it's very comfortable, and lots of torque, which is what we need in these type of conditions.
adapt himself to anything with an engine. He could drive a lawnmower faster than anyone else. And there was a certain flamboyance with everything he did. He didn't just turn up and drive, it was he overdrove. You only have to look back to the British touring car race at a wet Knock Hill, and people couldn't get past him because he was sideways everywhere, and the crowd just rose to him that day. They were sodden watching him. But that was Colin.
Colin was determined to put something back into the sport, and at Goodwood Festival of Speed the public were given a first glimpse of his latest project, a competition car designed from scratch, the R4.
Initially his focus was on developing it as a rally car. However, he was aware that, you know, once that had been achieved, that he could widen that appeal of it for a track car, for track days, for corporate entertainment, that type of thing, and even further down the line perhaps build a road car. Colin thought that perhaps it wouldn't be as quick as the modern car, but a lot more entertaining.
You know, before it was just driving. I just want to drive, just leave me to it. But, you know, of late I think he was turning himself into a businessman, wanting to know how do you do this and how do you do that and how do you set that up and what, you know, and I think all these things he was pulling together to drive it forward and to be a successful business for himself.
The news of Colin's accident came as a shock to everyone and prompted thousands of tributes from across the globe.
I have a great passion for all the wheels and engine, and so we lose a lot, I think.
We can't ever forget the amazingly flamboyant driving that he gave us, the fun that we all had.
Just totally natural behind the wheel. It wasn't an effort for him. So one of the true naturally gifted drivers in the world.
I think to most people Colin kind of defines the brand of the World Rally Championship that everybody knows today.
When I started rallying in WRC, he was the top and the star, and he was a man to follow and a very good driver.
He helped me a lot for my start of my career for many reasons, for especially attacking and stuff, but very good guy.
Because of what he did, also because of his games, Colin McRae is always going to be there.
A wonderful driver, a social time bomb, and a man who loved life.
I watched a boy grow into a man and become a hero, because that's what Colin McRae was. He was a hero.
It's helped us all, basically, you know, to know that there's so many people out there thinking of us. Saw the High Street in Lanark and the day of the memorial service. I think that answers the question that he was world champion, but he was a very, very popular world champion.